Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have the pleasure and the honor of having Rachel McCarthy with Milestone Funding. Is that what it's called?
The Milestone Foundation.
Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
It is a funding company, which is kind of unique, but it is a foundation, a nonprofit. So I know everybody's thinking, why are we talking about this, about growing your law firm? Well, because there's a lot of shysters out there that are taking advantage of our clients over the years, charging 60, 80% interest a year. And the deal is, some of these people are out of work and don't have money and have bills or have medical treatments they need and can't get them, and there's nowhere to go. But there is some alternatives. We talked, I've had Claim Angel on before, and we talked about their rates are like capped at like 28.7%, I think, or something like that.
27.8%.
27.8. I got it. I had it. Yeah, I'm dyslexic. 27.8. And we actually were I was talking with a representative from Claim Angel yesterday at our mastermind, and they were telling us about Milestone Foundation, which is a nonprofit, which y'all loan money even cheaper than that, and but you don't have it so limit. But what I want to talk about is, why was Milestone started and how does it work?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Ken. Thanks for having me on. So the Milestone Foundation, this year is actually our 10-year anniversary. It was started by John and Amy Bear. So John was a settlement planner. He was working with families, plaintiffs, with planning out, their future when they were receiving a significant settlement. And he kept seeing instances of these plaintiffs owing significant portions of their settlement back to these for-profit lending companies. And he was like, how is there not an alternative in this industry to the way that this is done? There's no other options for folks that are in this position and need a little bit of funding. So him and his wife came up with this idea of making it a nonprofit model. And so they started the Milestone Foundation, and it was incorporated in 2016. So the way that it works as a nonprofit is we provide pre-settlement and post-settlement funding, similar to how in the same sense as what the traditional funding companies do. But we do it at significantly lower rates, lower interest rates, because the goal for us is to help people who are in this tough position, are already going through probably the worst time in their lives as it is, and just need a little bit of funding to help them get through to the end of their lawsuit. So we provide low cost funding, and when it gets paid back at the end of their case, it just goes back into the pool of funds that can be given out to help future individuals. So there's no profit taken. It's all simply everything supports our mission, which is fair funding for plaintiffs. So that's how we do it. We're the only nonprofit in the country, and thus probably the world, that operates in this very niche industry. So that's cool, but it also presents its own set of challenges too. And like you mentioned, we're a little more strict with what we will fund because we're a nonprofit and we don't have those margins that allow for us to take on a lot of risk. But we want to get the word out about what we're doing because I think it's so valuable. And when plaintiff funding is done right, this is another thing that I know Claim Angel is keen on, is reframing this idea that plaintiff funding is this dark, exploitative industry and making it as though it could be a tool for plaintiffs and an advantage for plaintiffs rather than seen as this harm.
I agree. I mean, if used properly, I mean, most lawyers don't like it because they think it keeps them from getting the case settled because clients owe so much money they don't want to settle because they're not getting enough.
Right.
At the time, because they already got it. They already got it,
Right. Or they won't ask their attorney to settle earlier and take whatever they can get because they want money or they need some money, and they don't have the ability to wait years. So they might say, all right, forget it. Just let's take what we can get and call it a day. So that doesn't allow, it's an access to justice issue. It doesn't allow for the plaintiff to see their case through to its just end. And it also affects the attorney because it doesn't allow them to see the case through to what, they think it really is deserving of.
So we know like Claim Angel does 27.8,
Hmm.
and that they never will double, it will never, you'll never,
Compound.
it won't compound. You'll never pay more than twice what you
Right.
borrowed.
Right.
Matter if it takes 10 years. And there's very few, they don't tack on a lot of big upfront fees, very small fees, very minimal.
Right.
So how do y'all work? Because I know you,
Yeah, we advance for pre-settlement funding at 15% simple interest. And if it's post-settlement, so there's already a settlement offer, it's just the plaintiff has an immediate need and it might take a couple more months for them to actually get their funds. Post-settlement advances are 10% simple interest. So similar to Claim Angel, who we have a great relationship with because we both have similar goals in reshaping this industry, but it never compounds. And I think, I haven't really found any other traditional companies where there's not some compounding aspect to it. So yeah, it's 10 or 15% simple interest, and that's that.
that's great. That's great.
Mhm.
But I would think that the foundation doesn't have unlimited money. So I'm sure you
Yeah.
can't fund but so many a year or I reckon it depends.
Yeah, I mean that is the unfortunate part about being a nonprofit is things ebb and flow. And some months we might receive a ton of payoffs, and then other months we won't. And there's no way to really have a great estimation of that, of when things will come in. And then fundraising too. So some months we might raise a lot of money or receive a grant, and other months we won't. So it does ebb and flow. But that's why I think, there's always going to be a need for the traditional funding companies. So we're not trying to like take them out or anything. And we just couldn't, quite frankly. There's not enough, we don't have enough resources. But we encourage firms and attorneys to, if they have a good case, they feel strongly, the client's not looking for too much money. Our average advance is around $7,000. So it's not like crazy money. It's just they need a few months rent or they're going to be evicted or their car broke down and they need a new vehicle to get to their doctor's appointments. So if there's a good fit for the size of what they need, and the timing, we take a few days to do our due diligence. We speak with the plaintiff, we speak with the attorney. We're not one of those operations where you can just fill out the form online and you'll get the money within 24 hours. So there's still a need for the traditional companies that can fund higher thresholds and that can do a same day turnaround. That's not how we are. So I just encourage attorneys to consider us first when they have a case that meets our criteria. And then if we're unable to fund or if we can only fund up to a certain amount, then they can reach out to their other relationships. So I think there's certainly enough like need out there, especially just with how expensive everything is getting. If you are already living paycheck to paycheck and then something happens like a catastrophic accident, you're just one instance away from being turned upside down financially.
So what's your capitalization? How much money do y'all have to loan? I mean, I know you got it out, like completely all out and what you got in reserves. What do you got?
So we work with a line, we operate off of a line of credit, which is several million. So at any given point in time, we'll have a couple million out, in advances, in outstanding receivables, if you will. And then, like I said, it ebbs and flows based on our fundraising, our corporate sponsorships, things like that. So it's really hard to pinpoint like a number, but it's not insignificant. And in the time that we've been around, and we're small, we're nimble, but we're scrappy. We've funded 7 million in pre-settlement funding, so in pre and post. So we're looking to really grow that this year, which is why, I was excited to talk to you. Just I think that we're an industry best kept secret, and I don't think that there's been enough to get the word out about what we do and how we're different. And I know Claim Angel's newer in the space, and they've been helpful in introducing us where they can. I just really want people to understand that if they write off the industry as a whole, then they're missing an opportunity to better serve their clients. And if they're also blindly sending their clients to some of the larger companies that have been doing this for years and years, they're also missing out on best serving their clients because, from a fiduciary duty standpoint, there are other lower cost options out there. And so I just want to make sure more firms know about that. So
Yeah.
you take that into consideration.
Yeah, I think we talked about it yesterday in the mastermind at Pilma down here. And my concern is that there's some ethical. The state bars are getting into it now, and not all states, but some have got. You got to do due diligence. You got to at least give the client a choice.
Yep,
Not just the ones that take you to the Bahamas every year. You know what I'm saying? And that does
I
go on.
know.
We know that goes on. Which is not good. That's putting you above your client. That's the thing I like about what you're doing and what ClaimAge are doing, because you are the lowest rate. There's no doubt about it. I've never heard anybody that low. And I know ClaimAge has over 25 funders,
Hmm.
and they've got to come in that or under 27.8%. So, like me, you're doing your due diligence, you're doing that. And if you
Hmm.
go to you first and you turn them down, then they've done the best they can do. So, to me, it's a no-brainer. And I think it shows you the client that you're looking after the best interest. So, I think it's a win-win for everybody, the lawyers
Yeah.
and the clients.
And I know attorneys are busy and you don't have time to constantly reassess who your partners are for different avenues. You probably know what you know and you know how this one thing works and you haven't really questioned why you do that or why it works that way. And but I've seen more instances of the way that things have always been done that make me question why they're done that way. For example, I was talking to an attorney last week who was telling me about how his firm, they have these relationships with these traditional funding companies. They send them a lot of requests. They're considered a VIP firm. And so they've been able to negotiate, a better rate than probably most firms that would have come off the street. But if you are a plaintiff and you're choosing who you're going to use for your representation, and maybe you go to a smaller, like a solo practitioner or a smaller firm, and that firm, that attorney, your attorney doesn't have the same leverage to negotiate with these traditional funding companies, guess who's bearing the brunt of that? The plaintiff. So if a plaintiff's in a position where they're already low to moderate income and pre-settlement funding might be a useful tool to them, if they would know that certain attorneys and certain firms are going to have more leverage, it might be something that they would take into consideration when they choose their attorney. So it's like the variability of the way that the industry works currently, where some attorneys can get a better rate for their clients just by nature of, traffic and reputation, and then others are starting at a much different rate. Like, how is that fair? How's that fair to the plaintiff?
Yeah, I agree, Rachel. So if a lawyer or hears this is interested about the process and the whole deal, how it works, more detail, is it milestonefoundation.org?
That's right. It's themilestonefoundation.org. So, I mean, we don't do any marketing to plaintiffs. That's part of, the fact that we're a nonprofit is we get funding requests via attorney introductions. The attorney will tell their client, you should look at this option. We're not out there trying to come up in Google Ads because we're not trying to go straight to the plaintiff. But for many reasons, but for one, it helps us to sort of get the vetting from the attorney. If we know the attorney or if we talk to them and they have an appreciation for how we operate differently and they know that we're a nonprofit and they want to see us succeed,
Yeah.
they'll send us cases, they'll send us claimants that they feel good about. So that's why we work that way. But there's a form on our website and the plaintiff can choose, or the paralegal or attorney, whoever is filling it out, and they can just choose if it's a pre-settlement funding request or a post-settlement funding request. It's really simple. It gets put into our queue, and then our case manager, Sean, is incredible. He speaks with every plaintiff, within 24 hours. He reaches out, touches base with the plaintiff, gets a sense of their story, their situation, their need. Obviously, it has, for us, it has to be like they need it for basic living expenses, not just like they're trying to take their family to Disney World or something. So he also, Sean, then touches base with the firm. So whether that's the attorney or the paralegal. And then we have a committee that reviews our funding requests a couple times a week and then, approves what we can. And then that's pretty much it. So it's not, like I said, it's not 24 hours, but if there's a deadline that someone needs, we will do everything we can to like meet that deadline for them.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So I think that this industry, just for so long, it's gotten a bad rep and maybe rightfully so, but I just really see how impactful the service that we're providing to plaintiffs truly is. It's like when people are about to be evicted and they have no other options and they receive the funding from you and are so appreciative and like I mean these people have
Yeah.
gone through so much already. So just being able to help them with a little bit of funding to keep them like housed or to keep their family fed, it makes all the difference. And that's like the bigger picture thing that I think gets lost when you're thinking about interest rates and stuff like that.
No, I think it can help a plaintiff get through it. It might whatever they need it for to get so they don't have to take the first thing that the insurance company offers. And like you said, I don't want them borrowing money so they can go to Atlantic City or anything. But if it's something legit, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. Can I ask you a question, Ken?
sure.
So I had this observation, but I don't know. Right now it's just sort of anecdotal. Have personal injury lawsuits, has the timeline gotten longer just generally throughout the years? Because it feels like it has, and I don't know if that's just a feeling or if there's like data to back that up.
I don't know if the data. I mean, I can tell you what I'm hearing is there's a lot more cases going to suit because the insurance companies are not paying up front prior to suit. And so what their whole deal is, if we don't pay them, we'll find out. And they do credit checks on people, the plaintiffs, and see if they're poor.
Hmm.
And they'll say, okay, this case probably worth 30, but we'll go off from 10. Maybe we'll go to 15. And they'll take it because court will take 2 years. Whereas, like when I practiced 15 years ago, 20% of our cases were in litigation. Now, at my old firm, 50 to 60% of the cases are in litigation. And I know some firms it's gone like 60, 70% are in litigation because that's the only way they can. And so litigation takes time. So that is going to stretch out the time. And it's a ploy. I mean, it's the way.
Have the insurance companies like gotten wiser? Is that what it is?
Yeah, yeah. And certain places will take it, even if they can borrow the money, they just want to go ahead and get the money and go. And it's they want to wait and get what's right, get what's fair,
Yeah. Yeah.
gets what's just. So I think that I don't know if the court system itself's getting longer, might
Hmm.
even getting shorter, but the more cases are getting into this litigation, and I think that's got a lot to do with it, to be honest with you, because
Hmm.
I'm seeing that a lot more.
Do, do you see insurance companies dragging their feet too in like responses
Oh
and,
yeah, their
just
whole
what
game
they need to? Yeah.
their whole game is delay, delay, delay.
Yeah.
You
But
know,
that's the thing. Yeah. Because they know that people don't have the
yeah,
time and the resources that they have.
yeah. I mean, that's the insurance defense does what criminal defense lawyers do, and that is you throw up red herring and you delay, delay, delay in case somebody dies or evidence gets missing or whatever. People get, ready to do something. They're stressed out.
Hmm.
Witnesses move, witnesses die, doctors move
Hmm.
away. I've had all kinds of things happen when I was practicing law.
Yeah.
I've had to fly
Yeah.
all over the country to follow doctors and witnesses because they move and you got to find
Hmm.
if you can find them. So it's to their advantage. I mean, as long as they can hold on to the money, they can invest it.
Hmm. Well, I'm glad we're not on that side.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's not a good way to live your life, I don't think.
No.
It's a good deal. Well, listen, I appreciate it so much, Rachel. And
Yeah.
y'all keep up the good work. I did not know about y'all till 2 weeks ago, and y'all been around 10 years. So
Yeah. Like I said, best kept secret.
you're the best kept secret around. So now about 6 to 8,000 lawyers download this a week. So you won't be anymore.
Secret's out.
The secret's out.
All
All right.
right. Well, thank you, Ken. It's been a
Thank,
pleasure.
thank you. And until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success. Thanks.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.